Welcome everybody to School of Prayer class. We are starting tonight a 12-week session of the DNA of the House of Prayer. Friends in the room with us and others from the House of Prayer that are joining us for this teaching. And if you're watching or going to see her, you're welcome to join us here at the House of Prayer on Wednesday 6:30. And so we're going to get right. If you are watching on our YouTube, you can also go to our website, thehops.org. Go to our teachings, and you can download tonight's from the each section. We will load them on there every week so they long. Again, we're doing this because we want to just begin to talk and define as best as we understand it. God's doing with prayer. That's why we're calling it the DNA of the House of Prayer. And so some of the messages and teachings that we're going to dive into will be the theology of prayer, which tonight the history of the prayer movement, Bibles, and in modern history. We're going to take a few weeks to do that. We're also going to talk about the Sermon on the Style. That's very important as we are pressing into this. Because that's the DNA of heaven. Yeah. Matthew 6 and 7 is the DNA of heaven. When Jesus came from heaven, he brought the lifestyle with him. In fact, in Matthew 4, after all the miracles, he gets the disciples to him, and he takes them over to a little section. He goes, now let me tell you about the key demonstrate power. But this is a likely sustains revival. It's called the Sermon on the Mount, which we read all the Beatitudes. And if you don't call the Beatitudes, you will never love your enemies. So you can't skip blessed are poor in spirit and go straight to love. You can't skip over blessed are those who mourn or who long and go straight to I'm not gonna lust. You have to cultivate those 8 beatitudes through grace, through prayer, conversation with God. So the rest through Matthew 5, 6, and 7. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And when we're living that out, our prayers are packed with power. Mount lifestyle. Then we'll take a couple weeks and we'll look at a biblical understanding of the end times, eschatology. Why are we doing that in the House of Prayer? Because that is what urgency to pray. We're going to talk about the second coming. Talk about the kingdom a little bit in those 2 weeks. It'll be review, but we'll dive a little bit into it and some good dialogue here as well. Then we'll talk about the Father and the protections of Jesus, and we'll specifically look at how the Father thinks about us. We'll look at the Song of Solomon, because that describes the affections of Jesus as he's growing us up in him. Four chapters of the Song of Solomon, what we receive through the cross, our inheritance because of the cross and when we repent. The second 4 chapters of the Song of Solomon plus what God receives from us, result of the washing of relationship. We get something from him in the first 4 chapters. He receives something from us in the second, and it culminates with the second coming of a church fully alive for Jesus. And then we'll take a few weeks and talk prophetic history of how we all got in this room. It's really fun, because we'll go back a couple years and he talks about what are the things that God actually helped us along the way to be sitting in this room, to be doing prayer during the week, prayer, and how you're a part of that. I guarantee you, when you start to hear that story, you're going to go, "That's my story. That's my story too." God spoke that to me, because he's not just one individual. He's talking to his body. Look at it. This all goes watching tonight. So let's jump into this. Those of you have your notes, taking online, go to hops.org and download them on our section. Tonight we're talking about the end time prayer movement, and I'm going to just kind of go through these notes because it's kind of historical. And then at the end tonight, I'll look at Isaiah 2:2 for just a moment. Let's pray, and then we're going to jump into it. I thank you for your word, for the account in the scripture of the house of prayer with your people. What you've had in your heart, Lord, the nation of the earth, related to prayer and the partnership that we have with you. But Father, thank you for your holy hearts tonight. Open up your word to us. Release the spirit of glory on our hearts and our minds in revelation in Jesus' Amen. Amen. You have your notes. I'm just going to go through this first little paragraph here. Prayer is expanding as we sit here. It's expanding throughout the cities of the earth. Over 20 years, thousands of people of all ages have been into a night-day prayer reality. For some of us, it's new. For some, we've gone to a conference. We've gone also prayer. But some of the things that we're talking about in this class, the lifestyle of the house of prayer, and then you do it as a house of prayer yourself, and then working quickly with people takes on dynamics always hear about. And so we want to flesh those out of the scriptures and talk practically in this class. Significant impact on the earth. The house of prayer is not a ministry training. It's not like, hey, let's go do this cool ministry. This is before the foundations of the earth. It was in the Father's heart, like, hey, I got a new ministry thing I'm doing. I see your pastor in a traditional sense of the whole church, and started a house of prayer in the Bay Area. Sometimes I would say, well, if this doesn't work, what are you going to do? Nothing. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to another ministry position if this doesn't work, because the Lord's raising this up right now. And He's raising up men and women of all ages together corporately. So that doesn't mean that in a certain city. There's been lots of houses of prayer that have ended, dissolved for whatever of the purposes of God, like churches do. But as far as the house of prayer going across the earth and expanding with all communities of people, larger communities of people, this is one of the things that the Holy Spirit is highlighting currently. This is one of the things that's going to be in full before Jesus comes back to the earth. That in Revelation chapter 5, verse 8. If you're familiar with that speaks of the bowls of incense being full. Those are the prayers of mixed with worship. The heart is the bowl is the prayer of saint. Before Jesus opens the scroll and first seal, we see in 5:8 the movement is moving in maturity. The church is praying much more tonight or today in our time than we were 20 years ago. I look around and I look at the land young people that want to pray. When I was pastor 25 years ago, it was like pulling teeth to get a pray. The Holy Spirit is doing something, and young people are wanting to pray in context of worship. I was doing something very significant through this. But this prayer movement is going to mature before Jesus comes back to the earth. And so that's in this room. Some of us didn't know each other a year ago. That's a sign and a wonder that He's doing this. It's also a prerequisite for justice being released on the earth. Night and day prayer. Luke 18, which we'll talk about next week a little bit more. Jesus' night and day prayer goes to the cities of the earth. Then I will show justice. So practically, what is that saying to us? Until there's night and day prayer in this night and day, and the Lord said, night and day. It doesn't have to be 24 hours, but it's night and day prayer, and that is a prerequisite. Jesus releasing the justice that we so desperately need in the earth. It's connected to prayer. Prayers connected to missions, to see justice done in the mission. It's connected to being used in every sphere of life. Every sphere of life. Jesus said it's connected to the church praying night and day. We sit tonight, we need to be greatly encouraged because we're a part of biblical history. I actually think when the Lord prayer meeting, yeah, He looks and He sees us here at Sacramento. He sees our friends across the nation here in this house of prayer, or this local church. The Lord thinks they're praying, but I think when He looks at all of us, He has the ability to go, oh, this that King David started. And now this prayer meeting that they're doing, it's all one big prayer meeting to me. It's like when I go in the room, I'm in there with King David too. Swords for think about that. Now I'm not getting goofy, but some speak to go. I know the angels. Jesus is here. But maybe this is the way to this is like one massive prayer meeting with Moses David and Solomon and those guys prayed for revival in the 50s and the 60s. And us, Lord's like, his heart, it's all linked together. Just for a minute, I want to just look at these biblical accounts of night and day prayer. I put a lot of scriptures in here. Basically, they're biblical messages for you to look up on your. I'm not going to all these, but we have the first account of night in the tabernacle of Moses. Most of us are familiar that the guy who Egypt and he killed an Egyptian, and he went on the run for 40 years, and he became liver of Israel, and then he million plus count men, women, and children through the Red Sea into the promised land. Most of us, that's how we think of Moses. He was God's man, Moses had a prayer. He had his tabernacle. The reality in God is that when God wants to set captives free, it's connected to night and day prayer. Justice again. And we see that in Leviticus and Exodus 29. Then we see David's tabernacle. Probably along the way, David read this. He says, hey, I think the Lord still wants this thing called a tabernacle of meat, where he hangs out with people. David takes his tent and he puts his little tent up for 33 years. David's tabernacle was a reality 30 years in Israel's history. The Bible also tells us he wanted to do this for the Lord. I think it's Psalm 9. That David was a byword, even amongst those in Israel. Here's how I think of that. A Jewish around the dinner table during David's they catch word that David has put a tent up over on a little hill, and he's gathering some worship leaders together. They were plucking their guitars and hitting rocks to find for their drum, and they were ministering to Jesus in song. And they're like, look what that guy David's doing. You know, he wants to do that 20 hours a day. Can you believe he's doing it? In fact, he's got them dancing around the ark. Wait, he was a byword even in Israel. Because zeal for the house of God. And Jesus quoted that too. Jesus is walking along and he goes, zeal for my Father's has consumed me. Zeal for the house of God has consumed me. Jesus, the Son of God, said that, quoting David. David do. 8,000 employed full time in David's house to do night and day prayer. 8,000. Not just morning, Wednesday night worship teams. Night and David paid that, even owned money. And then he called Israel finance. Did it on his own, and to the treasury and financed it as well. 200 singers, 4,000 musicians, all total 8,000 people, causing that little goat to go for 33 years. Then Solomon, David's son, he built the temple. The temple was built in the same year that David built his tabernacle. David had blue heaven. The Holy Spirit told him what to do. He kind of like to heaven, or had a moment, and the Holy Spirit said, do it this way. Get these singers in front of the ark. These people do this. They will minister to me. And David did it in a certain, and then Solomon did it. And let me just say this. I got to read the scriptures. In Psalms 5 verse 14, the Lord's approval of night and day was this. So that when the priest could not continue ministering cloud, the glory of the Lord filled the house. Now the glory, we think of the Lord often is like power and him shaking hers and things like that. The glory of the Lord is the very God of God. When Moses came off the mountain, not off the mountain, when Moses finished in one of the biggest armies in natural history, he said, Lord, show me your glory. He wasn't for God to show power to him. He was asking for God to reveal who God was to him. He just watched God annihilate enemy army in power. The kind of power we think about. God, come in power. Shake the city. And Moses is like, no, worry, worry, who you are. I think about that scripture in myself. I think Lord showed up as he is, revealing his personality to us. Then you have Joash, Jehoiada, Hezekiah, Josiah, Zerubbabel. All those guys, those leaders of Israel, saw the Davidic worship of David, and Israel was blessed when they did it that way. When Israel strayed a night day worship order, or judgment, because away from God. Then you have their 70 years of captivity, page 2, and then Nehemiah, and he starts to build the wall of Jerusalem. You read through Ezra, through Nehemiah, it's a big story of house of prayer. Now the Old Testament refers to the house of prayer as the temple. So when you're reading Old Testament scriptures and it says temple, Jesus instead of the word house of prayer, and even an Old Testament prophet, Isaiah, in Isaiah 56, he called the temple house of prayer. So you've got Old Testament language using prayer. Isaiah 56, verse 7, he said, even them I will joyful in prayer. So when you see the word temple and house of prayer, they're synonymous, the same thing. The word temple in the Old Testament, it was the place where God would people could encounter God. Fast forward to the Jesus is like, my house has to be a house of prayer. Why? Because he wants to us. And we truly were in our hand. This again, we see that Nehemiah built the house of prayer with patient singers and musicians. Take time to talk about that to see will. I believe that God is doing that again in our time. Maybe somebody in this room are called to serve the Lord occupationally as an intercessory missionary. And we'll talk about that even biblically. First place is in Luke chapter 2, verse 36 and 37. Tonight we're not going to jump into all that. Send us what the Lord does and speaks to a person. Then we see in Malachi, the end of the Old Testament, that God was going to extend not just to Israel, but it would go to the Gentiles. That every city of the earth would offer incense to the Lord. Incense is worship. Now let's extend this out to the reign of Jesus. Sometimes we think, hey, we just fight through until Jesus comes back. You know, a lot of times, man, if I can just make it till Sunday, if I can make it till next Wednesday, I can make it to home group, get to my little meeting that I have, I'll be okay. And I understand that those are real things. Lord gives us friends. That's why we services. That's why we connect in worship meetings. We go to home groups. A lot of times we're just like, just make it to the end, and I'm good. The Lord's like, you know, you're not stopped praying, even when I come back to the earth. Because again, our minds, let's pray really hard to get revival here. You know, for years, let's keep praying and pressing really hard until we get a breakthrough. That's noble. That's even what we're supposed to do. But sometimes we approach it like, I'm going to run my race, right? And then maybe it's going to work. And the Lord's like, you don't realize what you're getting into yet. Thought the other day. And I've lived in this Sacramento region as a kid. When I first got saved, I was here for a while. And then Leslie away for 20 years when the Lord calls us into the house of prayer. And I'm doing all that I'm describing tonight in the house of prayer. And I've asked for revival. I've led in prayer meetings for revival in the Bay Area, in Sacramento. I believe I'm contending for revival. And then the Lord every once in a while nudges, what if you're not the guy that's around when revival comes? I'm like, what kind of question is that, Lord? Come on, we're the people that are pressing and praying. We're going to see it. He goes, maybe. But what if you're not? Are you still? Because there's a reality of prayer that far exceeds what we're. When Jesus comes back to the earth, he's going to sit on a throne in Jerusalem. 16, verse 5. He's going to sit on the throne of King David. Matthew calls the city of Jerusalem the great king, Jesus. It's been promised to Jesus by the Father. And prayer going to end, and in fact, Jesus will be leading those prayer meetings. And Jesus being the prayer leader, and those that's gonna be amazing. I talks about Jesus will be on the mountain. We'll all go to the mountain of the Lord. Teach us. Nobody sleeps when Jesus is teaching. It won't matter how hot it is in the room. Temperature wise, we'll be like, oh my gosh, I've never heard anybody speak like this before. You guys, we're not just for now. There's a millennium to come. We have limited understanding that we're praying right now for healing in a body or in a city, in the Lord's city. You might just see that here. You should, for sure, you'll see way more than that. And I've said that this is how prayer, in fact, how the worlds were created. In the beginning, the Word, and the Word was with God. Who is Jesus? The Word spoke, and things happened in creation. That's prayer. Pray the Word back to God. Jesus is the Word. That's how it's going to be for eternity. We're going to, in a very eternity. Now, the challenge for that, understand prayer the way I don't even understand it that way. That's why we're going to talk about joins, because we can see his prayer is just, oh, it's so hard. I'm not getting my answers. I'm not getting the breakthrough that I'm again. I'm not sure if I can keep content. That's got to get lost in how he feels and thinks sometimes, which we'll talk about. David's tabernacle will be rebuilt. That's why in that we talk about doing prayer meetings in the Spirit's tabernacle. We're not trying to start David's tabernacle in this room. People are trying to start David's tabernacle, but I want to go spirit that David had in us. I want that same spirit to touch my David. I'm not trying to establish something that's outside of my from God. I flow in the spirit of loving Jesus and knowing that he loves me and offering him prayer. Jesus is going to stone. That's what heaven on earth is. Matthew 6, Jesus taught his disciples to pray. He says, let's start here. On earth as it is. He's talking about prayer. He's talking about the prayer meeting. He says, this is what's going on in heaven right now around the throne. I want that to be happening. I want prayer meetings like that. Number 2, historical accounts. Very quickly, I'm going to go through these. These are just women that gave themselves to night-and-day prayer in church history. Alexander the Sleepless. What? Spent years in the desert in Syria. Then he establishes a monastery. It would go day, according to the words of St. Paul the Apostle. Pray without ceasing. And again, you can just look this stuff up and find it for yourself. Saint Maurice had a monastery. I mean, look at some 20 AD. Choirs of monks would sing for hours. Ireland, Celtic Christians, 3 monks, divided into 300 singers. They would sing 8-hour shifts, and they would sing back. That's what we do in the house. We talk about antiphonal singing, or it's called responsive. It's what angels are doing. When you see Isaiah 6, you see Revelation singing, holy, 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 worthy, worthy, worthy. Going on around heaven. That's heaven on earth. Us to respond the same way. Sometimes in the prayer room, when we're doing prayer meetings, eventually asking a question about who God is, and another singer singing and answering. That's when we're getting somewhere with God. One of the singers goes, "Who are you?" They sing this verse like, "Who are you, Jesus? You are like this, like this." And another singer picks it up because they're looking at who God is, and they answer the question because of and singing this over people into that's in a sense begins to permeate and change the atmosphere. That's where we go. That's where we get to go in God, you guys. We're into the conversation. It's that question: how hard do you want to go? He doesn't put any lists. It's us. We're like, I don't know if I can go that far. We talked about prayer and fasting. I don't know if I can miss that meal tomorrow. I get a headache, wobble, my blood sugar gets low. I get it. You know, like I'm sick right now, because I didn't eat my turkey. Like, I don't get some grace. It's like, press a little. Don't settle for. There's a lot of times in my life, I'm God, give me grace more than just to get by. Not the great. Everybody can look and go, look what he's doing. No, I don't know in my heart for what's available in Jesus. He's not going to really talk about all the stuff I heard for him. There will be rewards, but those will be based on obedient choices I made. He'll look at me and he'll go, how far would it go with the grace that I was willing to give? And I want to say, Lord, I went as far as I could. I can't say that tonight. Like I say, like I'm going and I go, not very far, kind of far. And then I go, what do you think? And then he looked at me with 10 loving cups. I just really like you. Get over it. He's not going to chastise us, but I do think might be able to look and he'll go, I love you, I like you, I'm so glad you. Look at all this grace that was available to you, and I'll probably be the one going, I could have that. Yeah, he goes, you could have. We could get that. Not all the great. What am I doing? I'm doing earth. I'm doing all this stuff for Jesus. How far go God in the scriptures? That's what we're called to do. And then we get to go do the fun stuff. Healing, the gospel, seeing people get saved, seeing here. That's not the first thing we do. First commandment. Anyway, look at these guys. Just read up on these guys sometime. It's amazing. Vision for where we can go. Page 3. These are current 9-day expressions we're probably aware of, and more that can be added to these. Soul Korea. You know, we've all heard about Joe, prayer. Goodness, I mean, that was amazing. Over 1 million a year amount of prayer. You've got the House of Prayer in Kansas City starting in 1999. Many of us are familiar. You've got the Boiler Room in England. The book Red Moon Rising, prayer room, which would take 24 hours a day. People would take 1-hour slots. Fascinating. All started in DC and it's moved around the earth, and now it's become this massive prayer meetings. Cape Town, South Africa. These are from years ago where people were going after 90-day prayer. 24/7. We have that here in Sacramento. It's across these cities and cities across the. You've got justice houses of prayer, even across the earth as well. And then you got an example of this in Jerusalem, Hillel, rip writings in Jerusalem. Man, can you imagine a 900 in the city of Jerusalem? I think about the touch of God on that and the warfare both. Think about that. I mean, it's the city where Jesus is coming. You think the enemy doesn't want that to happen? You think he doesn't want prayer crying out for Jesus to come back in the very city that he's been promised? We'll talk about that during some stuff. We might even touch a little bit tonight. Okay, last page, last page and a half. So that's kind of a very brief history of the prayer movement. It's not exhaustive, but it gets us. Talk about Isaiah 62 and how important it is to us here in the house of prayer. In Isaiah 62, these different points that I put under number 4, the different attributes and strategies and plans for the age, God's zeal for Israel, Jerusalem, salvation is going to touch Israel, the beauty of the Lord, in other words, who he feels and the bridal paradigm, which the bridal term describes God's emotions and his affections, how he relates to how we can relate to him. 9-day prayer, the gladness, the full run ministry is talked about in there as well, which we might add into that, and then the age to come. why do we talk about, and let me just mention this real quick. The reason we talk about millennial king, we talk about it a lot, is because this life that we're all in right now is an internship. You're in a 90-year internship. Psalm 30 says that this life is a vapor. It's like tea kettle on your stove tonight, boiling it up, and as soon as that vapor hits, it's gone. That's what our lives on Earth. We are in an internship for eternity. This is the womb for eternity. Think about it. So one of the reasons we talk about the millennial, so it's so out there. No, it's out there. These first 14, 15, then we're 20, then we're 30, 50, and on up. And the Lord's like, you are living in an internship. And how you live here has great consequence in each. And there's content. Okay, so that's what we talk about it. Isaiah 62 verse 6 tells us that the Lord has set watchmen walls, speak communities that are praying together. Watchmen, plural. This doesn't mean that we don't have our personal prayer, we intercede, but the Lord is calling watchmen together corporately. As houses of prayer, and it says they will never hold their peace. And so under this makes really clear that there's going to be a worldwide prayer movement, communities coming together. Even as we're sitting tonight, and as we gather on Thursday nights, this is Isaiah 60 happening. God is putting community of people together, watchmen on the wall to pray, to go after the Lord. This is a strike, night-and-day prayer. Isaiah 60 verse 2, behold, darkness will cover the earth. Deeps will cover people. We're not. Now, when you look around tonight, you can think, wow, there's a lot going on. It's turned up right now a little bit in the spirit. It's crazy in cities. But we're not to deep yet. We're not to deep darkness. There's darkness. There's injustice. But the Lord's got an answer for it. He goes, when darkness covers the people, will rise over you, and His glory will be seen upon you. That's why we can be joyful. We can be joyful. Wow, we know how this goes. Even when deep darkness people, the glory of God's going to rest on His people. Light's going to shine, and people are going to come out of this darkness. The Lord's raising up a people like that. Last page. The Lord will arise over us. See, wrap it up here. One of the reasons was essential, because there will be a dramatic action of sin and wickedness in the earth. There will be an increase of spiritual warfare. At the same time, there's going to be an increase in the glory of God, meaning the glory of God, yet power demonstrations that we have yet to see. Glory, His people walking the knowledge of God. We know who He is. Preemptive strike will be that night-and-day prayer of His people. God raises up against the enemy's plans. I like this. Revelation 5:8, we see bowls of incense are the prayers of the saints. Being released before the end time. We're praying church, and it's going to be in full age before the end of the age. So wherever we are, I want to get closer to you. You've got time. I don't know how much time, but it's just like the Lord. The Lord is urgent, but He's not petty. The Lord's intentional, but not in a hurry. I think about my days. I'm like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. The Lord's like, relax, chill. I'm really urgent, and I'm intentional. but I'm not panicked, and I am not in a hurry. He's looking at my life. He's going, man, we got a ways to go. I'm giving you time. I'm giving you grace. I just went into those things. I feel like that even now, being, serving the Lord for the last 30 in ministry. Some days ago, man, I should be further along than I really am. He says, don't worry. I've got a lot of grace, and we got a time for you to do this. Then I know exactly what I'm doing with you. All it doesn't matter what our age group. What matters is Lord grace to press into you. And if you're doing this, this is what the agenda of the hour is, not the only thing. Is the prerequisite to see what we want, revive, and we get to do next to his heart, which we'll talk about more. Tenderness and his feelings for us. Let's go for it. Let's ask for grace to press into him. So Father, tonight I'm asking that you would cause our hearts to connect with what it is you enter into. Lord, let us connect to Bible verses that you have already put in us that we resonate with according to what you're doing, knowing that we're called to this. And for those that are around and learning, connect the dots, Holy Spirit, for us. Lord, I just thank you tonight for being able to be in this room and to talk about what you're doing in our midst, in our day, and in our time. In Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you. Amen. Yeah. Sorry.
Now I'm on the stream.
That's it.
That's it. So